Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's FBC Radio Live. That's right. We're back 2 days in a row. If anyone out there, hockey fans, hopefully you survived that rush of trade action yesterday. I know the deadline is tomorrow, but the NHL has decided to get an early start on things, as have some of these NFL teams. And not necessarily an early start because there were some deadlines here approaching the new league year, franchise tag deadlines. And as we see every year, John, we're seeing a bunch of teams start to try to rush to become cap compliant. One of those teams being the Buffalo Bills. And this is not a great day for the quote unquote cap is crap people out there, the ones that told us. And look, I'm speaking very much towards the New England media, Boston media, who have really poo-pooed the salary cap and used Buffalo as an example. Well, John, let me ask you, what has all this spending and cap turmoil gotten them?
Yeah, one trip to the AFC Championship game where they lost by 22 points, I think, to the Chiefs 3 years ago. Yes, they've lost 3 times to Patrick Mahomes, 2 in very close games. They've been competitive for 5 years now, but really they don't have a trip to the Super Bowl. And like I said, just one trip to the conference championship round. So they need to still find a way to fine-tune things, whether it's through the coaching staff, if Josh Allen can play better in big games, if their defense can step up. And I think it was their defense more than anything that disappointed in the postseason. You know, they went out and scored 24 points, which oftentimes we get it done against Kansas City this year, but they allowed 27 against the Chiefs and weren't able to really get off the field in key moments. So they're going to have to address that defense and see what they're going to do with Stephon Diggs. But yeah, they've been a disappointment the last 5 years. Yes, exciting. Yes, competitive, but they haven't been able to push through.
Well, look, we've been kind of talking about this long before they even got on. Like this was it. This was their year. We felt, you know, they already kind of probably, you know, we talked about it heading into the season. We thought that they were on the downturn of their run here. You know, they peaked the absolute peak of the Bills' run was with 13 seconds left in that game against Kansas City. I mean, let's be honest. That was it. That was the peak. That was the exact height of their run so far. And there's nothing to there's nothing to hold on to now. There's no like. I mean, they're still over the cap, John, and they have just absolutely slashed mostly their defensive core. And you know, and Braden, you know, thank you for patting me on the back, but you know that Von Miller deal was a disaster waiting to happen from the get go, and they can't even cut him, John. The only thing they can do is to reduce his salary, and even then he's still overpaid. So this Buffalo team, like they may be the third best team in the AFC when it's all said and done at the end of the year, John. Because who knows what happens if Miami improves? I mean, New England it could be anywhere, John. They could literally be anywhere in this division. If Aaron Rodgers comes back healthy, all of a sudden you have to take the Jets a little bit more seriously. So, you know, this is obviously there's a long way to go. There's still plenty of moves to be made, and free agency hasn't even started. But you know, if you're going to ask for some knee jerk reaction or some you know, in the moment reaction, Buffalo might not even make the playoffs next year, let alone win the division or go to a Super Bowl or any sort of nonsense like that. They may be one of the worst teams in the AFC, let alone one of the best.
Yeah, I mean, they were 11-6 last year. They finished strong, beat Pittsburgh in the wild card round, and then they finally got the Chiefs at home, and they weren't able to take care of business. Lost that game, and many of us felt maybe that was the Super Bowl, that Buffalo was able to win that game. Maybe they go ahead and beat Baltimore. I don't know. It would have been an interesting matchup between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson in the AFC Championship game because finally one of those guys would get to a Super Bowl. So, yeah, they just always seem to come up short. The year before, they were 13-3. You had DeMar Hamlin happen towards the end of the season, and they barely beat Miami in a wild card game, and then they just kind of got blown out by Cincinnati in Buffalo. So they're always disappointing in the postseason for a myriad of reasons. Josh Allen's put up pretty good numbers in the postseason, but doesn't seem to come up big in big moments, and then that defense seems to be less than what it should be in the postseason. So, yeah, I mean, you look at the AFC, you still have Kansas City kind of hovering over the whole thing, if not the conference, the league as well. And then you think Cincinnati should be better this year if Joe Burrow stays healthy. Baltimore's got a very talented roster, and then we got to see what happens in the AFC East. Again, Miami's always there, but they kind of falter towards the end with injuries. And
I don't think they have a quarterback or the quarterback, to be honest with you.
No,
so
especially if we're going to get into freezing conditions in Kansas City in January. Tua is the guy who, through the course of the season will put up good numbers with those great receivers, but I don't put him up there as a guy who's going to go out and have a 3 or 4 game run where he's going to save the day for them.
No, I mean, there's going to be moments during the season, maybe they don't put up 70, but you're going to be that, wow, I mean, back-to-back games with 40-plus points. Well, yeah, okay. Tyreek Hill helps. Let's be honest. It helps a lot. And we've seen, look, so Miami is Miami. I think they're exactly what they were. They're going to be exactly what they were last year. And that is a middle of the pack team. They struggle against good teams. They'll beat up on bad teams. That's exactly what I think they're going to be. Maybe they'll improve slightly, but unless they get a better quarterback, I don't think they're making any sort of drastic leap. Like I said, the biggest wild card swings could be from the Jets and the Patriots. The Jets very clearly because of the quarterback that they assume will be coming back. Now, again, you can't assume that a 40-year-old coming off a torn Achilles is going to all of a sudden regain the form that he hasn't had since 2021 because, like Brady, he had a down year in 2022. It's still a hope to hold on to, especially if you're a Jets fan. But if he comes back healthy, all of a sudden the Jets have a pretty good defense. Those offensive numbers, those offensive players will look a little bit better with Aaron Rodgers throwing them the ball, and then also all those issues, off-field issues, all of a sudden they'll start to go away if you start winning football games. And then, like I said, the Patriots, who have a lot of money to spend, high draft pick, and really, I mean, for the first time in a while, it's kind of a guessing game because Bill Belichick isn't in charge, and like I said, we talked about it a little bit yesterday. They could go from borderline top overall pick to a solid playoff team. I'm not saying a contender, but a solid playoff team overnight. And that could really disturb or disrupt what the Bills are trying to accomplish.
Yeah, every year a last place team comes back the next year, at least one of them in the league, and there's 8 last place teams every year. One of them makes the playoffs. Last year was the Houston Texans, right? Finished last the year before in the AFC South.
13-1 in 2022.
Yep. Ended up being 10-7. Now, obviously, they nailed it on the quarterback. They also nailed it with their second high first-round pick in Will Anderson Jr., who became Defensive Player of the Year. They had a few nice pieces in there already with a franchise left tackle and Laramie Tunsil. They made the coaching change, and everything kind of worked together. Yeah, you could turn things around in the NFL. You really can. And the Patriots defense plays at a nice level. If they can really tweak that offensive line, get much better player quarterback, yeah, they could win 8, maybe 9 games. That certainly could happen because it does quite often in the NFL. So the AFC East, yeah, Buffalo still remains the favorite, but not by a lot because Miami's kind of always there, like you said, and they always take care of business against the weak teams. Can't seem to beat any of the good teams. And the biggest X factor, obviously, is probably the Jets because of Rodgers. If he plays the way he was in 21 and 20, and it's a lot to ask for an older guy, then all of a sudden they're a contender for sure.
Well, and to your point, like you said earlier, I mean, the regular season's different. Like you can win the Dolphins could win the AFC East. It's not going to change how I feel about them. Like I said, unless something drastically changes in the offseason, if they, and I unless they get a better quarterback, I'm always going to just kind of look at them as, just I mean, a flashy team that's gonna kind of fool you a lot, give you a lot of false hope, and until they prove otherwise. Like and this isn't I'm not hating on Tua. I think I was very fair to him and maybe a little bit high, not maybe high on him, but I thought people were treating him a little unfairly. I mean, watching this season play out, he is what he is. I just don't see any sort of monumental leap from him at this point in his career. I think he's like I said, he is what he is, and that's fine. He's a good quarterback. I don't think he's going to be good enough to bring this Dolphins team to any sort of Super Bowl glory or any team for that matter, unless, well, I don't know. Really, I don't know if I see a scenario where he can bring a team to a Super Bowl. So
I don't. No. I mean, again, you look at the quarterbacks in the AFC, and there's a lot of young ones that I would take over Tua, right? Obviously, Mahomes and Burrow and Allen and Lamar Jackson are like the first four to come to mind. Justin Herbert, I would take over Tua, I just think because of the physical ability, the size, and the arm strength. And now that
what about Justin Fields?
Justin Fields, if he ends up in the AFC, yeah, I would certainly. He'd be interesting because he's got a high ceiling. He's still not accomplished as a pocket passer, which I think at some point you have to figure that out. I like the player because I think he has a lot of intangibles that you like. He's physically very tough. I think he's a good leader. But again,
I think he's more athletic.
The football.
And I think
Justin
they both.
Fields, oh Lord, yeah. Justin Fields is way more athletic. Sure.
And that's the thing too. His issues in the pocket aren't exclusive to him too. I think Tua shares a lot of those same issues. Just he might be a little bit more polished, quote unquote, as a passer, but I don't think the difference is that much. And then you take into account the athletic difference. I might even go Justin Fields, but just because like I said, at this point we've seen Tua with a lot of talent the last couple of years. I mean, I know he was injured last year and he had some success, but he's had opportunity to really elevate his game and use the talent around him to do so. I'm not saying that he necessarily elevates them, but like you can still be great and be elevated by the talent around you. And that's what I think Tua hasn't done yet. And that's kind of puzzling because we keep saying too, it's like, I don't care if you have a 75% Tom Brady, you put him in Miami with those players around him. They're absolutely probably walking into at least the AFC Championship game. You know what I mean? Like easily, because it's like, yeah, a great quarterback's going to utilize those players around him to the absolute max. And I think unfortunately Tua has done that, but his max is just not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, I was never a big fan of him at Alabama. He comes out, he's drafted ahead of Justin Herbert. Actually, he was the 5th overall pick, and I thought it was kind of a reach for Miami. I mean, remember during that college football season of 2019, it was tank for Tua. Like he was supposed to be the 1st overall pick, and I'm like, I'm not seeing that. Lack of size, lack of arm strength. I don't think he's a great athlete. Like I was like, why is this guy being considered the 1st overall pick? And then Joe Burrow had an incredible year at LSU, wins the Heisman, wins the national championship, and you could see the difference between the two quarterbacks. And then Herbert's the guy with a lot of physical talent, who I think is better than Tua. I think you would take Jordan Love over Tua at this point, even though he's only played one year. Right?
I think we've seen more out of Jordan Love in that 1 year. And look, it's not like he's only been in the league for 1 year. I mean, he sat for 3 years and learned and polished himself. So that's an advantage for Jordan Love that Tua obviously didn't have. But that's it. Tua's situation is more like most other quarterbacks. Like most high draft pick quarterbacks usually get thrown into the fire pretty early on, if not right away. And as opposed to, I don't want to say even in years past, but I feel like it was a little bit more favored. Unless you're Peyton Manning and you're being drafted by a 1 or 2 win team that literally doesn't have a quarterback on the on the roster, and you're this generational guy. But for the most part, even some of the higher, I guess some of the more sought after prospects, they even sat a little bit. Learned the game. Kind of understood learn the NFL before you have to go out there and play football, because it is a different game. And we've talked about it before too. Part of that is that the game, the college and the NFL game's far more similar. I think it take into account where the college sports economy is going. So some of these players are going to be coming into the league having, maybe signing. I feel like that would be a tough situation to play out, but signing contracts that are actually less than the money they made in college, which sounds weird, but some of it is, John. I mean, Arch Manning, like, what do you think he's making right now?
Oh, he's making probably between $5 and $6 million. He's a backup quarterback at Texas. Caleb Williams was making $10 million a year at USC. Now his contract with the Bears won't be that much. He'll still have the endorsement money. There was always a joke that we used to tell years ago that, Kentucky basketball players are taking a pay cut to go to the NBA.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that far off right now with some of the football programs in college football with NIL and all of the amount of money that these guys are making, which is great. I think it's awesome. Pay the players, let them have some freedom. And Nick Saban's all bent out of shape and decided to retire because he couldn't take it anymore while he's making 10, 12 million a year and getting pretty much cheap or free labor at that point.
We'll see.
Helping him along.
I'm almost like, I almost feel like I'm on like both sides of the fence here. Whereas like I do believe that the players should be absolutely making money off this because these colleges, these programs are just banking money off their likeness and they're getting nothing for it. However, it's like think about John if you were in prison, okay? Think back to some of your younger days, your more rambunctious days where maybe you were getting in trouble or whatever, and just try to imagine that you were a chain smoker, much like a lot of people in prison do, because it's a time killer and it's part of the economy. Now imagine a regime comes in and completely overnight takes cigarettes away, makes it so illegal or so against the rules that you just can't do it. I think that's going to cause a little bit of a problem. Now in this situation, as opposed to kind of doing it over time, over a period of time. Now, in this situation, I think we went from, a college athlete couldn't get a hamburger from a scout without getting thrown out of college sports to now they're signing $40 million contracts to endorse things that they probably don't even understand completely. So I think there's going to be some issue at some point down the line, something big, something that's going to cause a controversy. And I think that's a product of, jumping in with, I think 2 feet does a disservice. I think you're jumping in with like 18 feet,
like a caterpillar at that point.
Yeah.
You obviously, I would compare it to is the old, get in the shower theory, where you get in the shower, you put it on, and you get your overhead spray, and it's way too cold, so you quickly adjust it to warm it up a little bit, and then you go so far to the left that now you've got scalding hot water. Now you've got to adjust it back towards
eventually,
the middle, so you have comfortable water. Yeah, and this is, again, there's going to be some tweaking here to the point where, is it great that players are leaving every year? And I think what the coaches are pushing back against is, first of all, if I was a football coach, I'd much rather coach in the NFL than college football. Obviously, the pay's better, not that much more, though, because a lot of the high-end college coaches make $10, $12 million a year. It's just an easier gig, right? I mean, like Andy Reid doesn't have to recruit his entire roster back to Kansas City next year. There's contracts. There's a general manager in place to do that. There's a draft. There's free agency. In college football, you're recruiting the next class, but you're still recruiting the players you already have so that they stay with you. Like, it's just an endless cycle that you're dealing with. So I think being a head coach in the NFL is much easier than being a head coach in college football. I kind of laughed at, like, Bill Belichick is going to go coach in college. I mean, at 72, does he want to make life harder? I don't think it would work that well, unless he goes to, like, Navy and coaches, where it's a completely different animal than, say, Alabama or, Ohio State.
And look, I mean, again, the one and done stuff, the money that these kids are making, I'm not on Nick Saban's side, but I understand why he doesn't want to deal with that because, it makes his job harder. And I'm not saying like, oh, it's too hard. I mean, the guy's one of the greatest college football coaches of all time. All right, this isn't a negative Nick Saban thing. I think just certainly at his age, kind of like, it's like at this point, no, I'm not going to deal with it. You don't have the luxury of being able to build a program necessarily because you're like you said, not only were in the past you were always recruiting, now it's like almost even more because you have players come in once, go to the NFL, and it's like, you know what I mean? It's tougher for college coaches. So I don't blame them necessarily. So, but
oh yeah, much more difficult. It's like 24/7, right? 365 because you in the past, players, if they moved, they had to sit for a year, which I thought was a bit much, but now they can just get up and leave. I mean, I don't know if I can recall this, but players might in the middle of the season just say, I'm all done, and end up somewhere else for at least the next season or whatever. So yeah, that makes it that much more difficult. They're going to have to tweak the system a little bit so that college football is still a big part of the zeitgeist, because I can make a case that college football is the second most popular sport in the country. Like, I think I would make that case. We see what the ratings are for, the national championship game, et cetera. Maybe up here in Massachusetts, it's not, but where you are, it's right there behind the NFL, if not maybe ahead of the NFL. I remember Dan Ross, who was from Everett, Mass., who went to Northeastern, played for the Cincinnati Bengals, and actually played in Super Bowl 16. And that game, he set the Super Bowl record for receptions, which was later broken by either Edelman or no, I think it was actually one of the Denver Broncos wide receivers in that loss to Seattle. So I remember interviewing him, and he said, I got to play for the Cincinnati Bengals. We were like the third most popular team in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And I said, what, overall behind the Reds? He goes, no, football team. He said, Ohio State was number one, and then Moeller High School in Cincinnati got more coverage than we did. That's how big college and high school football is in places like Ohio and Pennsylvania. It's a completely different lifestyle.
Right, and I've I guess been, and I don't know if fortunate's the right word, because it's not like I'm a big like high school football fiend, but like I've had the luxury of experiencing both ends of the spectrum, because obviously I grew up in Massachusetts, but now I live down here in Florida, where again, I mean, college football season is pretty big, and usually the talk of the town. But by the way, Joel called you Clint Eastwood from Escape from Alcatraz. So, by the way,
Ooh.
so yeah, pretty good, pretty good.
I
so,
like that.
Yeah, means you're pretty good at paper mache.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe as I get older, I'll be Clint Eastwood from Gran Torino. Get off my lawn.
There you go.
But still be a nice guy with a big heart. Actually, I think Clint Eastwood's greatest performance, his greatest movie, is $1 Million Baby. I think.
Oh, you love that movie anyway. So.
Oh,
yeah,
man, that is spectacular.
Yeah, you love that. So I was gonna say Clint Eastwood from Escape from Alcatraz. I could have done maybe Red from Shawshank. I can see you as Red.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah, it works.
Morgan Freeman.
Yeah,
Morgan Freeman.
There you
won
go.
An Academy Award for $1 Million Baby.
Just maybe not maybe not Brooksy. You know what? You don't want to be Brooks. His story didn't end so well. But
no.
Yeah, we don't want that. So anyways, that's going to do it for us here today. We will be back tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow's Friday. I had a identity crisis there for a minute. I thought today was Friday for a second. But nonetheless, tomorrow is Friday. Keep an eye out on the Full Press NHL account, covering the NHL trade deadline. We're doing a great job over there yesterday and going to continue through the weekend. So keep an eye out for that. And we will we'll talk to you tomorrow. So have a great day. Have a great afternoon. Have a great evening. We'll see you in the morning.